Revisiting the late-night curfew, Barnstable by Bike, funding for transportation, and spring cleanup. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, May 8th, 2013. I'm Sarah Colvin. For nearly 10 years, Barnstable has banned businesses from opening between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. Chief of Police Paul MacDonald says the ordinance has been key in reducing crime in the late-night hours.
What's happening, particularly during the weekend nights on a Friday and Saturday night, and it wasn't just a seasonal thing, it was a year-round. After the bars had closed, groups of individuals, they did not want to stop partying, so they would find some local establishment, either 7-Eleven, a Christie's, or a gas station. They would contact everyone via cell phone, and there'd be huge crowds, 200 to 300 individuals congregating at these different establishments. And we had responded to multiple times of incidents involving shootings and stabbings and fights, and it was a pretty bad scene. So the town got together with the police, with the Hyannis Business District, with the NAACP, and we came up with this ordinance. The ordinance was passed, and of all the ordinances that we have on the books, this is one ordinance that really has worked, because since the ordinance has been in effect, their problem has ceased.
But now, Chief MacDonald says he's been getting some requests to review that ordinance. The chief says he'll work to review it, but nothing is likely to change.
We've been complacent. I think there has been no problems. The ordinance has worked. The ordinance has been extremely effective, and there really hasn't been any incidents after hours. So now they're re-examining it, and do we still need it? And I don't mind looking at it. I don't mind sitting down with whatever group wants to and discussing it and taking a look at it and changing it, amending it, tweaking it, maybe. But there is a method within the ordinance itself that if you do want to open for some type of special event, there are exceptions made to it, and we make them all the time. Particularly during the holidays, on day after Thursday, Black Friday. There are several retail establishments that are open 24 hours a day, and we've always allowed that. We want to be pro-business. We want everyone to be successful, but we have to have that safe environment. If we do not provide that level of safety for downtown Hyannis, none of the businesses down there are going to survive.
That ordinance was put in place to control large crowds gathering outside open establishments late at night. Well, next week is Bay State Bike Week. The town of Barnstable's Growth Management Department is working to promote transportation of the two-wheeled variety. Director Joanne Miller-Buntich says next week's Barnstable by Bike public meeting is designed to gather input from the cycling community.
For many years, Growth Management has been working on getting around Barnstable by bicycle, which resulted in a plan, a map-based plan called the Barnstable Bikeway Network. It had a lot of components. There were shared paths or off-the-road components. There's, of course, the big effort to extend the Cape Cod Rail Trail across the town, sort of south of the Mid-Cape, and just various little ways to look at bicycling. So last year, we decided that we would put in the work plan for this year a more focused effort about cycling in Barnstable, so we could develop a prioritized strategy for implementation. Some of these items will result in a capital improvement project that have to be put in the queue, and so on and so forth. So we also decided at the same time that this was a project that we could have a lot of fun with, and so that's sort of been our mantra going forward: is how to have fun doing this, how to engage the public, and get the information we need from the cycling community and the users, and get the plan going.
That meeting
forward.
begins at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 15th, in the hearing room here at Town Hall. Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf is the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Labor and Workforce Development. The hearing schedule was recently released. Senator Wolf talked to us about what he sees as priorities.
First and foremost, the hearing is on the minimum wage, and that's going to be a controversial issue, but I think it's an important one, and it's indicative, again, of what's happened to the middle class in this country and the working poor. Shortly following that, we're going to be taking on unemployment insurance. That is a mechanism to help those who have been unemployed, and frankly, it's a system in Massachusetts which is in need of overhaul. There's a real disconnect between how we collect money for that benefit and how we pay that benefit out. So we're going to be looking at that second, and then shortly after that, we're going to have a hearing on the earned sick time issue, which I know is a controversial issue, especially for those colleagues of mine in the small business community. We're trying to do that bill in a sensitive way, but I think that with over 1 million people working in Massachusetts, mostly at the lower end of the wage scale, who don't have earned sick time, there's a lot of good reasons we should look at that. And again, I'm a supporter and a co-sponsor of that bill. So there's going to be a really very healthy agenda in that committee, in my committee, this session, and we're going to hit the ground running.
Funding for road work could also be coming our way. Barnstable Director of Finance Mark Milne says Barnstable could be getting a good amount of money from the state this year.
The state's transportation program budget, where they will, on an annual basis, issue bonds, and then from those bond proceeds, they will allocate funding to cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth for maintaining the local road system. So it's a state-funded program. It has ranged anywhere from $100 million a year to, most recently, a recommended or passed budget by the House and Senate of $300 million for fiscal year 14. So these funds are not subject to appropriation by the town council. There's a set of rules that must be followed that have been issued by the Mass Highway Department. Each project that a community wants to do has to be submitted in an application to the Mass Highway Department for their review and approval. Once the approval is received from Mass Highway to go forward with the project, then our Public Works Department will proceed with putting projects out to bid, entering into contracts, and then it's a reimbursable program, so we would expend the money up front and then submit for reimbursement through Mass Highway to get the refund, to get the money back to cover our expenses. And most recently, we just received approval and submitted and signed a contract to do Oak Street. So people in that area will see a major road project. It was over $1 million project contract that we just signed to reconstruct.
The state budget is expected to be finalized in June. And finally, with springtime comes spring cleanup, and our Director of Public Works, Dan Santos, tells us that's exactly what DPW crews are out doing right now.
Uncovering all the things that we use during the year and bringing out all the trash barrels and raking and trimming. And because of this past year, with the number of storms we had, and pretty significant ones, we're still working on cleaning up some of that storm damage. So our efforts this year in the spring cleanup are a little more than they have been in the past, with just a lot of branches and limbs and trimming up tree limbs that are kind of half broken and finding those things. And this is across all our properties, all the buildings and areas around the buildings, to cemeteries and lawn areas. We probably have 180 acres of maintained lawn and property that we're dealing with in 136 locations, which is really hard to believe.
And Santos adds crews practice green methods.
Policy: we don't use any insecticides or pesticides or any any dangerous chemicals or synthetic chemicals, either for pest control or...
Spring road work is also underway. Today, work being done on Finney's Lane between Route 28 and Old Stage Road. Tomorrow, crews will be out on Lincoln Road. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.